Welcome. This is Bleacher Blums, a sports podcast for baseball fans. Now here's David Tuttle and Astros master of banter, Blummer.
Here we are. We are back for more. It is episode 127. That is a special number in my career and in my life. And I'll get to that a little bit later in this Bleacher Blums podcast. But you are listening to Bleacher Blums. My name is Jeff Blum. I am a 14-year Major League veteran and current Astros color commentator. And on the other end, out there on the West Coast, we have got David Tuttle, an All-American pitcher for Santa Clara University, also was a member of Team USA and spent 9 years playing minor league baseball. So we have seen the underbelly of baseball. We have seen the underbelly of sports, and we have also enjoyed becoming good friends while talking on this podcast. And we appreciate everybody coming in. We want to remind all of you to make sure that you subscribe, rate, and review. Share this with your friends. Share this with your family because they are missing out if they are not listening like you are. And out there on the West Coast, we've got David Tuttle. Tuttle, how have we been in the last week, man?
Good. I'm in vacation mode. Blummer, thanks for the introduction. And man, your intros are getting better and better. It sounds like you're a TV color commentator somewhere, but you're sharp. I've never been introduced like that. It's perfect. Yeah, it's great. I'm in vacation mode.
No, I was just going to ask you, do you mind if you tell people where you are at on vacation?
Oh, no, not at all. Yeah, I know it's different when you're an ex-big leaguer, but no, I'm up in Santa Cruz, California. My background looks great. I know it's a little cabiny, but we're right on the beach in Santa Cruz. And I think I've said this before on the podcast, but the joke is, right, the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. Santa Cruz isn't much is not too far from that, let's say. And it's overcast this morning, but the weather's been fantastic. It's been about 75, 80 degrees the first 3 days, burning off at about 10 o'clock. But, it's about, 9 right now, and it's a little overcast, but vacation mode is vacation mode. You know this, Blummer. You just got back from a few days away, and it almost doesn't matter what the weather is like. Sleep in a little bit, have a few more cocktails, and enjoy taking I guess decompression or debrief from the real world.
No, it is kind of nice. And, the background is too, you grew up in Northern California, so you still go up there and vacation basically in your backyard where you grew up as a youngster. Do the kids know do you tell them a lot of the history of you up there in Santa Cruz where, this is where I knocked Mr. Johnson's mailbox off with a 2x4 as we went driving by, or, this is where we dropped an M80 in somebody's front yard.
So my mom still... That's fine. They haven't heard all those stories yet. I keep telling them that the worst things will happen. Santa Cruz is a little bit different because we did vacation over here, but I'm keeping some of that stuff secret, I guess. If they listen to the podcast, maybe they'll find out some of the details. But Santa Cruz is great. I think I don't know if I told you this before. This cabin that we stay at was built by my great grandfather in 1947.
How about that?
So I think, aside from all the mischief and, where I met some girls on a couple of summers, things like that, it's really nice to share the history of the cabin with them and understand, why we come up here every year and enjoy ourselves. So, I think information's disseminated on a need to know basis, and I'm sure you do the same, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, you'll find that the older the kids get, the more, the greater the stories get, and you just get a little more creative in how you tell them, omitting maybe some certain points of those stories that maybe you don't want to let out just yet because you don't want to give your kids any ideas. But you're right. It seems to be vacation week here for the Bleacher Blums because I actually had a couple of days off from the broadcast, and I was able to go down to Cabo. Now, the story behind this is that my family went down on Father's Day, the 20th, and I didn't meet them until the 24th, 25th. And when I say Cabo, it's in the vicinity of Cabo because we were actually staying at a house about maybe 20, 30 minutes south of La Paz on the east coast of the Baja Peninsula. So it was land in Cabo and then drive an hour and a half through Mexico to get to the house that we were staying at. So, one day of travel, and then it was one day of see how many drinks you can get in to catch up with everybody else for the rest of the week, and then get on a plane and come back. And what was brutal about that is that we get to Cabo after an hour and a half drive with the family, and we're sitting in Cabo and we get your flight has been delayed 30 minutes. Your flight has been delayed an hour. okay, we're not going to leave for another 4 hours. So we sat in the Cabo airport, and I think we were literally the last flight that left Cabo San Lucas on that Saturday to come back. But it was a lot of fun, and it was very interesting. Jeff Bagwell sat in for me on that broadcast, so make sure that you stay tuned in this podcast because I'll dig into that a little bit deeper. He's got an interesting broadcast style, to say the least. But I learned how to play bocce ball in Cabo. Have you ever played bocce ball, Tuttle?
Yeah, bocce ball is one of my favorites. Yeah, bocce ball. Yeah, that's right. And it's you can play here on the beach. We get a little hard packed sand and play bocce ball. Yeah, it's great.
So I'm glad you brought that up because I had never played it before in my life. And they came out, you've got, the 4 heavier green balls, and then we had 4 red balls. They're like softball size, but they're relatively heavy. And then you've got the marker, the target, I guess, that you're throwing out there.
It looks like and it's like a ping pong ball.
Golf ball. Yeah, ping pong ball or a golf ball. And you kind of fire it out there. And like Tuttle said, you just kind of launch, and see who can get the closest, and you start to count. So being it my first time, and my buddies that I was going down there to meet were talking mad trash, I wiped them out and cleaned their clocks. So I was the bocce ball champion, and then I proceeded to go out there and just whoop them up in cornhole. But it was a great vacation, and I'm a huge fan of Mexico. I've been to a lot of Mexico, not every part of Mexico, but I've been to enough of Mexico to know that I absolutely love it. And my kids absolutely love it too, because we've had the chance to go down to Cancun on the Yucatan Peninsula and go to Playa del Carmen, Tulum, Mayacoba, and cruise the cenotes and things like that. But I was curious, Tuttle, if you had to give your family an opportunity to choose where they would go on vacation, what is that one vacation spot that the Tuttle family would just hands down be like, yep, we're going here?
That's a great question, and I appreciate you bringing it up. Mexico's been a little I've been to Mexico a couple different times at a couple different places, but the publicity they get, now is a little, especially taking a 2-hour drive from the airport, has been a little more challenging. So, but I agree with you. I mean, Cabo is great. I would say Hawaii. I think it would be a fight over the islands. My wife tends to like Kauai a little more, out in the nature.
Yeah, laid back.
I tend to like Maui. Yeah, I like to be in Maui near the mall, like what's wrong with me? I mean, but I would say Hawaii. If we all had a quick vote, I think Hawaii would be it's an easy trip here from California, only about a 5-hour jaunt, and, tropical. And I don't know. That would be my guess. Yeah. And we've had some great times similar to what you said. We played a little bocce ball here, no cornhole. We do have a table cornhole. Have you seen those? The little ones?
Oh, okay. No, I haven't.
It's got the little bean bag, so you can put a long wood table and just play table cornhole. We've done that. So we haven't declared a champion yet, but it's nice, Blummer. I think those guys would probably say that you were a couple days behind them on drinks, and that's why you won. So, I mean, there's always some sort of excuse, I'm sure. I'd like to hear what their thoughts were about you becoming the champion. Like, well, you just got here.
Yeah, you're too sober and too athletic, man. It's messed up. Trust me.
The when logic you get off behind that, right? Like, give me your money and shut up. Like,
exactly. I'm like, are you sure you only want to play $10 a game? Let's go. But you're in good shape when you get off the plane and your phone is blown up with texts from the people who are at the house going, go through duty free, pick up tequila.
Yeah.
That was probably the funniest thing. Last podcast, we talked about Scherzer and the issues that he had with Joe Girardi. The sticky stuff has been implemented. And What's on Tap is brought to you by St. Arnold. We're going to talk a little bit more about the sticky stuff, and it's only because there was a hidden rule inside the MLB rule book that I didn't even know about that got Hector Santiago, who was the first to be busted for the sticky stuff on his glove. But there's a catch to it. So make sure you stay tuned for that. I told you we're going to talk about Jeff Bagwell on this podcast, about his broadcasting style, which was very unique. And you got a couple more things too, Tuttle, don't you?
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the Euro Cup. I know that might turn some people off, but I've been watching a little bit of soccer here on vacation. It's been great. And I wanted to dig into another Washington National player, Kyle Schwarber, who's having a hell of a June, my friend.
Dude is raking. And later on, I'm going to tell you why, since this is podcast number 127. I'm going to give you a little insight into why I did wear the number 27 when I played Major League Baseball. But for the time being, I think we will get into the bulk of our podcast. And when I was gone, there was a lot of people didn't know that when I'm out last year, it was Lance Berkman who sat in for me. And I only miss maybe about 6 to 9 games throughout the course of a season. And recently I was out for the Detroit Tigers series, and Jeff Bagwell stepped in for me. And what was funny about this is I'm trying to figure out how do I unfold this, because it was kind of interesting to hear, what fans had to say. And then it was interesting to hear what my producer had to say, because I didn't have cell service where I was at in Mexico. We had kind of spotty Wi-Fi service that was in and out every once in a while. But purposely, when I first got into Mexico, I turned my phone off because I was like, okay, like you said, Tuttle, you're just going to unplug, get off the grid, enjoy family, enjoy friends. And I did that. So the first night was great. Wake up the next morning and I'm like, okay, I want to know how the Astros did. Did they win? Who did what? What was the score? All that kind of stuff. And my phone is going absolutely nuts when I turn it on. And it hooks on the Wi-Fi, and I'm getting text messages. I'm getting Twitter alerts. I'm getting Instagram alerts. Everything's going crazy. And I find out that Jeff Bagwell has gone into complete roast mode on the broadcast. And he's like, finally got that California clown out of the booth, which I didn't appreciate, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I'm going, okay, that's just Baggy being Baggy. And then he proceeds to, go into my board short choices, and he's going into other stuff. He's starting to get personal. And I'm going, man, this is really weird. But fans are kind of like, Blummer, what'd you do to make Baggy so mad? Why'd you piss him off? But, he proceeded to go on roast Biggio and roast some other guys and have some pretty colorful banter. And I texted him and I was like, bro, I go, you need to call the game. Fans are a little concerned about our relationship now because you're getting into me so hard. So I was like, you might want to focus on the game a little bit. And they get rained out on Friday, play a doubleheader Saturday. So he had to broadcast a doubleheader, and then he did the game Sunday. And in talking to my producer when I got back, he kind of gave me the first game was a little worrisome because when Baggy gets on, he gets a little loose. He starts to say some things and he starts to push the envelope a little bit. And he told me that first game, he was kind of had his finger on the button, like, am I going to have to cut the broadcast? Am I going to have to cut his mic? And they moved on to the game, the second and third game, the fourth game. And my producer goes, man, after that first game, he was awesome. And I was like, good. Because I told him, I go, bro, you need to talk about baseball. I go, everybody loves that you rag me constantly, which is wonderful. But at the same time, you got to be able to go out there and broadcast that game. So Tuttle, if you were listening to a ball game, and I mean, when I'm in the booth with Baggy, it's great because we go back and forth. We do tell some stories, and it's a little more friendly fodder than it is actual just, I'm going to toast this guy and, talk about his sexuality and talk about his board short choices and thank God he's not here and call him a clown, but when we're together, it's a little more subdued. But is that enjoyable to you, or how do you feel about the locker room kind of creeping into the broadcast a little bit? I mean, it's fun for a bit, but I don't know if it would last throughout the course of a season.
No, I think I brought this up before. It's really interesting, but yeah, Blummer, Bagwell, you could get Biggio in there too, and Berkman, but the killer bees in the booth too. I mean, nobody can be a color guy unless they have the last name B and played for the Astros. And I just think that's wild
that's
in itself, point. Right? Like there's nobody else. They can't bring in anybody else. No, I think it's interesting, and this very well. It's one thing to say, hey, my buddy Blummer, I do the podcast with, he's da-da-da-da. When, if you're ragging somebody in the clubhouse, like they've got the opportunity to come back. And that's what you're saying in the booth too. When you and Bagwell both do the broadcast together and you have TK in the middle or whomever in the middle, it's a nice little like, hey, banter back and forth. And then if you push the envelope, then he can push the envelope back. But, it's almost like, indefensible, right? If you're gonna start, getting on somebody about how short their board shorts are, the fact that they're pink because you're from California or whatever. I didn't listen to the broadcast, but you have no chance to defend yourself. And so the way you defended yourself, like you said, is Twitter's blowing up, is to text them and say, hey, dude, call the game. And I think that's what this podcast is for, right? We get to tell some stories, maybe some off color stuff, but when you're doing the broadcast and somebody's listening, maybe they're not watching the TV. They want to hear what's going on. And there's certainly a subtle difference between radio, broadcast, and television. But sometimes less is more. But I think, there's definitely a fork in the road there. Let's make sure we're calling the game, getting the pertinent information out there, and let's do it in an entertaining way. And I think that's what happens with you and TK over time is you have this nice relationship. He knows when you're on and when he's on, and if he needs to give you more space, all that stuff, you play off each other. And I think what Bagwell was doing obviously was not, you didn't have a chance to defend yourself, but you certainly, he wasn't there to call the game. He was just, firing missiles without any sort of repercussion. So.
Yeah, it would probably be way more interesting if I actually was in the booth to be able to fire back a little bit. But he's always highly entertaining, and I think that's what his appeal is he is a little maybe off color sometimes, but he's brutally honest about what's going on. And I think he eventually, I listened to the game on Sunday and I thought he did a great job.
Nice.
It's always good to get another perspective, and Baggy definitely brings that to the to any call he's on. And being an ex-Hall of Famer, he's going to see the game differently. And I actually, in listening to him and in listening to some of the feedback that was on social media, I got a great question. And it kind of goes to some of these local broadcasts, and it's something that I do not do. And I want everybody to know that I don't do it on purpose. And it's when I talk about the Astros, I don't say we. I don't say us. I don't say we need a good pitch here. I don't say we need a big hit, or I can't believe this is happening to us. It's those guys, them, it's all theirs. And, so I got the question is, why don't I do that? And part of it is, in learning how to do broadcast, I've been told not to say things like that. I try not to call everybody a kid, because everybody is a kid to me when they're on the field. And that's a true baseball term where you call everybody a kid. So I've tried to give those players a little bit more respect and call them, full grown humans, and they're going out there and playing hard. But the reason I don't use the we and I use the them and the Astros and call them by something other than, one of my teammates is because I had my time. My time is over, and I want to give these guys the due respect. I don't want to, include myself in any of their successes. I want to put it all on them and let them enjoy that no matter what. So that's just kind of my thing. I think it's great for Baggy to go out there and do that, because he's one of the rare, ball players these days that spent his entire career with an organization, still works within the organization. So I have no problem. And he's not doing it every day. He does, 6 or 7 games a year. I have no problem with him going we or us or, that kind of thing, and be inclusive. Whereas on a daily basis, I just want to put all of the emphasis on those guys out there, the Astros doing their damage. But when you listen to broadcast, would that bother you? Does that bother you? Have you ever heard that?
No, I think you nailed it. I mean, I think of it more with my friends, man. It pisses me off, right? I'm a Giants fan where they're like, oh, we need to,
but that's a great example, because of the fans. The fans do feel like they're a part of the team, and they say, man, we sucked last night, or we did great. Explain that.
No, I mean, we always say that, right? Fan is short for fanatic. And I think people do associate like that, but, and I think that's okay. And I actually think you nailed the point. You kind of asked and answered your own question. I think with somebody like Bagwell, it's unique because he played his whole entire career with the Astros. He's employed by them, and he's a Hall of Fame baseball player for them. So I think in his heart and his mind, he's a lifer, right? The Astros organization is embedded in him. Dusty Baker, when he goes in the Hall of Fame after his managerial career, it'd be really hard for him to say we and us and they, right? He's managed the Reds and the Giants and the Astros and the Dodgers. He played for the Dodgers. When guys like that move around, then it's really about them. So I do think there's some context there, and I think you answered that really well. But it hits my ear wrong. Back to the original, your point, like this kid or them, or yes, the Astros got you a World Series ring when you were a broadcaster, but I do feel like, as me personally listening, like this is their job, this is their thing, because you can associate negatively and positively. And I think from your perspective and what I know of you, and I'm like this as well. I mean, your time was your time. I love now when people come up to me and go, man, I remember when I watched you pitch that game. I heard a story it was great. It's really fun. But I think there's that humble component to it, right? Like if somebody's going to tell a story about you and it's enjoyable and it remembers you fondly about something you did and an impact you had in their life, that's fantastic. But it's not really our place or your place to go, like you're taking credit, right? So it works on the negative, like, oh, we sucked last night, but it could also be like, yeah, we were fantastic. We hit really well with runners in scoring position. It's like, you're not really doing anything. All you're doing is commenting on what's out there. And I think it kind of gives too much credit and associates you too much with the team. But again, I mean, the Bagwell situation is slightly different, but putting myself in your shoes as a broadcaster, we want to give those guys the credit. I mean, for me, this is a little bit of a longer answer, but for me, if I think about how hard I worked to kind of not get to the big leagues, right? Like, I was in AAA for a couple of years and I was right on the cusp. These guys don't just walk into the big leagues, right? You have to remember, all these great stories of these guys getting called up is like, oh yeah, their family's flying in. And it's a fantastic experience for them. How could we take credit for that, right? Like, boy, what a journey it was for us to get to the big leagues. We were 3 for 4 last night. Like, if you start doing it to the individual, it kind of diminishes it on that side. And I think you get the point, but I like your take on it because you asked and answered. And I think Bagwell's a unique guy for one. I don't know him, but he's also in a unique situation where you're playing, Tony Gwynn could say we for the Padres, right? As long as he was alive. So
no, I think that's a very good point. Excellent point. I like the fact that you even brought into the fact that, that these guys have earned the right to get to the big leagues, so that it is theirs and you do want to put the ownership on them. I do the same thing as a parent with my daughters who do spectacular things. I want to be able to put that on them and let them own that, because as parents, I think we try to let them learn by failures. So you've got to own the failure in order to really embrace and enjoy the success that you do have. And that's partly what goes into it. But these guys are great. I love having Jeff Bagwell on there and being able to have that show. Eventually, we'll be able to have a 3-man booth where he gets in with me and TK, so we could have some of that little more competitive banter up there and have some of that that back and forth. But we're going to move on in this podcast. I want everybody to stay tuned because we're going to talk a little soccer. We've got some Kyle Schwarber who's been tearing the cover off the baseball. And we've got an issue with Hector Santiago being the first guy to get popped and suspended for using a quote-unquote sticky substance. I have a sneaky little rule in there that you're going to want to stay tuned for. But we've got a moment right here. We're going to take it and listen to a sponsor.
Hey, and we're back. Thanks to our sponsor, now here on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. You're listening to the Bleacher Blums podcast, and we wanted to roll into the next topic of the day. And I know Blummer's going to close his ears and turn off his video because it's Euro Cup soccer. I just have to say, maybe it's because my daughter's playing soccer these days, but I've been really into watching the Euro Cup. In 2004, my wife and I were out there before we had kids. And I remember being in London at 1 p.m, and every single pub was just jammed full of people in suits. And I mean, it was crazy. I mean, the whole country shut down to watch soccer games. So I'm not English, I'm not German, I'm not Portuguese, but watching these games has been fantastic. And I will just say, I think it was Croatia and Spain. Spain was up 3-1 with 10 minutes left in the game. Croatia scored 2 goals. They went into extra time. It ended up being 5-3. If you're watching that game, it's 3-1. It's already, I mean, I never thought of soccer as a sudden death kind of last minute game. They scored 2 goals in 7 minutes, and it was crazy. The next day, France, who won the World Cup 4 years ago, France is one of the favorites to be in the finals here in the Euro Cup, and they were up 3-1 on Switzerland in the 82nd minute. Switzerland scored again. Switzerland scored in the 90th minute, and then it's 3-3. One of the players on France hit the crossbar in the last minute of the game, and it didn't go in, and they went to shootouts, and Switzerland won in shootouts to knock France out. And we call baseball a game of inches, but I think the French would disagree. They'd be like, huh. It was 2 inches away from going in, and, so anyway, I don't know if you want to call it the patriotism and the competitive nature of this, watching these countries get after it. And full disclosure, my wife is Czech, and the Czechs beat a team that they weren't supposed to beat. I think they beat, who did they beat? I don't even remember, but the Czechs are in it. So I'm watching the Czechs closely. So anyway, Blummer, that's all I got. It's a little bit of a rant, but you have not watched soccer. Do you ever watch soccer? Houston has a couple good soccer teams. I know that for a fact. The women have a good team there.
Yeah. Houston has the Dynamo and the Dash, and the Dash have been very good in recent history. What's interesting about soccer is that it's much like NBA NBA basketball in the playoffs. It's like the NHL playoffs. I will watch playoff type sports, and I feel like, I'm not into it enough to know the players in soccer because, every once in a while on a Saturday morning, if there's nothing on, I'll turn on the Premier League or Bundesliga and see some of these guys. And what I love about, the Euro Cup or the World Cup is that these guys, I don't know if you've looked at contracts, but these guys get paid a crap ton of money. And when they play for, when they're playing for Barcelona, they're playing for Man U and all of these, these organizations, they play hard, they play for big money. But I feel like once they put on their country's flag and they go running out there, whether it be the blue shorts and the yellow top for Brazil or, some of these other colors, there's another level that these guys get to. And I think they really enjoy not just representing their country, but going up against maybe some of their teammates, from other countries where they can go out there and go, okay, remember all those times in practice where you burned me? Here, I get to do it on the main stage out in the Euro Cup and make some of these plays. But I really feel like when these guys step onto the pitch, look at me. I know soccer language. When they step on,
you've been watching Ted Lasso.
When they step onto the pitch, exactly. I did my homework on HBO Max, dude. But when they step onto the pitch, you can feel them kind of use the energy of the crowd behind them. And I think that's another thing that's really unique about soccer is that they really do kind of feed off, the fandom out there of them chanting and cheering and imploring them to go out there and make some great plays. But I do believe that in these cup, these one game championship series, after you get out of pool play and you start to play these one-on-ones where it's one and done, that's where you start to see some of this intensity. But I didn't realize some of these matches were so close and they were coming back late and really providing a lot of energy and intrigue into some of these late games. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like you said, that's why we like live sports. I could probably watch underwater basket weaving, but I've been watching soccer and it's like 3-1 with 10 minutes left. And you're like, the game's pretty much over the way they're, possessing the ball. And all of a sudden it's crazy. Two things. One is the Czechs beat the Netherlands, which the Netherlands were one of the top 4 or 5 favorites. And that's pretty big for the Czech Republic. The other thing I was going to say is this year, Christian Eriksen from the Danish team from Denmark had a heart attack on the field. And I'm sure that was a pretty national story. He had a heart attack on the field. They saved his life, that whole deal. But he had a couple teammates on the Belgium team that had played with him at Tottenham. And the Belgium team played right after. And the guy scored the goal and then was like, so not only competitive against his teammates, but he scored a goal. And then just, honored his teammate or, they scored against the Danes and then they hushed the whole celebration and everything like that. So,
wow.
A couple good things. I know the listeners will, probably be more well-versed in some of the Euro Cup goings on, but I've just been intrigued by it and I appreciate you providing some insight from the pitch there, Blummer, from stuff you're watching. I wanted to get into, you mentioned Hector Santiago. You probably have some more insight on that than I did. We're back to the sticky substance. Now we're back into the sport we know and love, baseball. He claimed it was just rosin. And I thought that was really interesting because we've been talking about how sunscreen and rosin. And this is all going to come full circle, in my opinion, where baseball is going to actually say, okay, this is the sticky substance this offseason. This is the one we approve and you'll be able to use it. Because how is an umpire supposed to go out there and go, well, this isn't 100% rosin. They're going to have to bring a lab kit, like a drug bust where they bring in the thing and they put it in, they shake it and they go, oh yeah, it is. It's just rosin. You're good to go. So, I don't know how the umpire is supposed to determine what's allowed and what isn't. And you mentioned there's a subtle rule in there. So I'd be curious to know, Santiago was basically claiming that he wasn't using anything that wasn't allowed. Don't know if it's true. Don't know if it isn't true. But what say you? Yeah,
this is going to blow your mind. It would be kind of funny if they, how when they go to replay, they bring out the headsets and they put on the headsets. That if they had, a TSA agent on site that had that, the paper where they wipe your hands and then they put it in the machine and it kicks back. Okay, you're not bringing a bomb on. Yeah. If they had the rosin detector and the pine tar sticky stuff detector and they put it in the machine, they're like, yep, he's using, and then they pop him and put him away in handcuffs right there, or bring out the canines, get some canine sniffing dogs.
Dog, or like I said, the little whatever reacts with this substance, like the little shaker, like, yep, it looks like they were cheating.
Yep. There's enough there. He's gone. So Hector Santiago gets checked and they check his glove and there's sticky stuff on it. And I don't know if you saw the video of it, but they threw him out of the game They took his glove and it looked like a damn, kitchen trash bag that they put it in, but they send it to the authenticator next to the field. He puts it in a trash bag, zip ties it, puts the evidence tag on it, and under lock and key, they send it to whatever lab they send it to. And here's the catch. Go ahead, Tuttle.
I was just going to say MLB CSI coming to you this fall. Like they're bagging and tagging. Like we got a new TV show too. Like what the?
Damn it! We need to get on this. I can't
believe it. The authenticator. We've done CSI Las Vegas, CSI Los Angeles, CSI Miami, CSI MLB, folks. Here we go.
There we go. Yeah, just get the acronym and put CSI in front of it, dude, and let's roll. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's basically where we're at. Again, it's kind of funny that we're making a mockery because that's what it feels like. But you mentioned Hector Santiago in his post-game quotes, and you're right, said it was just rosin and sweat. And Scott Service said the same thing. It was rosin and sweat. He was using the substance that is on the field and is approved by Major League Baseball. But there's a catch. The reason he got ejected is because they felt that the sticky substance was on the glove. And in sending it to the lab, they found out there was rosin on the glove. That's the catch. There's a rule in Major League Baseball that says you can have that rosin on your hands, on your wrist, but you cannot have it on your glove. And that's why he got suspended. Is that some kind of bullshit right there? I mean, sneaking that rule in there and they're sticking to that, pardon the pun again, sticking to that rule that it was on his glove. So instead of him going to the rosin every pitch, he had it and just tapped his glove with the rosin, and it became sticky because he kept going to it and trying to rub it and get a grip on the ball. And that's what got him popped. And the reason I bring that up is because I had no idea about that rule. And the other day, I'm watching Zach Greinke pitch for the Houston Astros, and before he went to the rosin bag, I watched him take off his glove and set it on the pitching rubber, and then he walked to the back of the mound and put the rosin on his hands and kind of rubbed his hands together, got it tacky for himself, and then put his glove on. And I couldn't believe it. Is that not unbelievable? They're taking it to that extent and sticking to that rule?
It is. It reminds me of what we see when politics roll into town with propositions. They're always like, well, Proposition 41 is going to be this. And then you realize, like, if you're kind of reading all the, the jargon and all the addendums on it, is that it's typically like one little like issue for the prop, and they back end all of the other things that they want to tie into this proposition for, for the legal code. And it sounds like MLB's got some lawyers working with it as well, because I mean, so you can have rosin on the mound and you can have it on your hand, but you can't have it on your glove. I mean, all right. So, I mean, what are we doing? We say that every podcast. What are we doing?
Is that not ticky-tack?
Yeah. Nice. How many of those can we do? Ticky-tack. He got himself into a sticky situation, Blummer.
Oh, there you go. Maybe, I mean, things are coming unglued.
Or glued.
Oh, man.
Things are coming glued.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, they really, who knows, man. But that's just to explain that situation. I think it's obnoxious. And we had a situation the other night in an Astros game, too, where the Astros were getting blown out. And position player, Garcia, goes out to pitch in the top of the ninth inning. And guess what? What happened when he came off the mound?
They checked him.
They checked him. They checked the position player, and you could just see he had the biggest smile on his face. He gave up 4 home runs, 2 home runs in that inning, and he's just kind of, it became laughable because the game was so long and it was such a blowout. And he's just sheepishly with the grin on his face going, "Here you go. You can check my glove and hat." It was just kind of funny.
Yeah, the time I was checked is what he's going to say. I think that I didn't watch that game. I did see the highlights or the box score. But man, really impressive I think it's a testament to how good big league hitters are. Just, bringing a guy throwing 85 or 88, but he's a little straight, and these guys peppered him. And it's like, it's not that easy to hit, right? It's almost like 4 home runs. Like, can't you just hit one off the wall or hit one right at somebody? Nope, apparently not. Like, so they'll probably bring in somebody else next time. But I mean,
they teed off.
Yeah, it's amazing though, right? I mean, like you didn't salivate. I don't think you salivated when this is my always thing, right? This is the double-edged sword. When a pitcher came, position player came in to pitch and you were coming up, you're like, oh no, because it's like my base running thing. There's only one good outcome. This is forget true outcomes. Like you better get a hit or a walk. Because if you strike out or pop out, then you get a lot of grief, and that position player has something over you, right? It's like if you go into pinch run, you better just follow the leader on the bases. Because if you get picked off or make a base running blunder, then everybody remembers it. I don't know. It just 4 home runs off a position player. That's tipped my cap to the hitters. They were on fire.
Yeah, they were mashing him. It was really interesting to watch, but. There's nothing more uncomfortable as a position player to face a position player. And I think I only had to do it once. And I think it was against Aaron Miles, second baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals. And fortunately, I found a hole. It was just a base hit, but at the same time, it was whack. Whew. Whew. Okay, I don't have to listen to it when I get to the dugout.
That's right. More importantly, did you ever come in as a position player to pitch?
Yeah, no, I never had the chance. I was never that guy. Sean Burroughs did it a couple times with the San Diego Padres when I was there, but I was never asked to go out there. And I had a pretty good arm too, but nobody ever really asked me to go out there, fortunately.
Well, how come? I would think a utility guy, I mean, depending on your day and rotation, like whether you're playing short or third, like why, like I would just be curious at how the manager, like I got asked to pinch bunt before. So that was pretty cool. I mean, that meant I was the best bunting pitcher in AAA. No, I don't know. But I mean, how does a manager, that'd be a great thing to ask a manager. Like, how do they go, we've got a 25-man roster. Blummer's down there. No, Blummer's hiding behind the water cooler. I've seen that guy throw a little bit. Like, or is it the embarrassment factor? Like, oh, that guy just got called up. We're going to put him out there. Like, how does a manager like Dusty Baker even choose that? Do you have any insight into that? I have no idea.
I have no idea. That's a really good question because there are a handful of guys where you just kind of go, yeah, you know what? That guy would be the position player that pitches. I don't know what signifies the fact that he would be, but I just thought it was great because, I would probably have done it like Rebel Garcia. He threw it like he was throwing it from shortstop. No real big arm swing, just kind of short-armed it, short stride, and just started to throw darts in there. And unfortunately got teed off on. But
well, that's because that's more like BP. I think the short arm is like BP. I think that's what it turned into. From the ear, guys were just like whack, like they liked it. But if I have some insight for you. If I'm Joe Madden, I'm bringing that Ohtani guy in to pitch, that position player. I'm going to throw that guy on the mound. So there you
go. Gee, I wonder who we could bring in right here. I'll bring in the guy that throws 100.
Let's see. How about? Oh yeah, you out there in right field. We're going to bring you in. So there you go.
Yeah, I've heard you got a pretty good arm. But speaking of teeing off. You had you've got something you want to talk about, and I think it's great that you chose this being a pitcher. But somebody that's been teeing off has been Kyle Schwarber. Man, he's got 15 home runs in 17 games or something ridiculous in the month of June.
So he led off last night off Rich Hill with a home run. So he's 16 of 18 now, and Rich Hill does not give up home runs. I think Rich Hill doesn't face a lot lefties. I know he's older.
And that's left on left.
That's right. So Rich Hill has a 143 batting average against from left-handed batters. Excuse me. He doesn't face a lot of guys because his batting average against is so low. Everybody turns them around right-handed. We're just going to put all right-handers in the lineup. So it's one of those weird things. But Schwarber's been on fire. He led off the game last night with a home run off Rich Hill, 84-mile-an-hour fastball. First pitch, sniped him. I read the statistic. Schwarber swings at the first pitch like 32% of the time, which is pretty unique. That's a pretty high percentage. I mean, it's a third of the time he's getting after it. He jumped on it and hit a ball 440 feet, like 434. So, but I bring him up in a little bit, hopefully a unique perspective is not, hey, this guy's on fire. And, it's the best thing we've seen from a hitter perspective in home runs since Sammy Sosa and Barry Bonds have both done it. I mean, the company he's in, they were saying like hitting 7 home runs in a week in June or something like that. It hasn't been done since like Carl Yastrzemski. Leadoff home runs. He's in Alfonso Soriano category. Of course, Alfonso Soriano batted leadoff his whole career. So, Ricky Henderson, guys like that. But I mean, you just start seeing these names stack up. But my question to you and my perspective is that, then after this game, he's 16 home runs in 18 games. I think he hit like 15 in 10 games or something like that, 15 home runs in 11 games, something crazy. So when you take that span, he didn't hit his first home run till June 10th or 13th. So you start paring that down. It's not, it's the month of June. He's got 16 home runs, but he skipped the first 10 days. So all kinds of crazy statistics, but he's on fire. And we have talked about superstition on this podcast. We've talked about streaks, but I guess it's like facing the fire. If you miss a field goal or kick a game-winning field goal, you got to go into the press room and answer questions. And I listened to Schwarber's press conference last night, or I saw some snippets, and it's just not a comfortable situation to be in. And I don't know if you're ever in a situation like that, but it's like, gosh, what are you seeing out there, Schwarber? Like, do you think you can keep this going? Like, I mean, it isn't even about superstition. You just don't want to talk about it. And so I thought he handled it pretty well. And he said something like, I'm just trying to be dumb up there, see ball, hit ball, which is the right answer. He did a lot of team stuff, the Bull Durham, like, hey, winning's better than losing. It's just a team game. We're on fire right now. We got out of the cellar. We're playing well. We're pitching well. Like, he just went to all the standard answers. But I think part of that goes back to our initial comment about the we and the us and the them, right? About Bagwell is like, it's always nice to go there, right? Because you don't want to take credit for your team's success, but also you just want to keep this thing going. And it's really hard to focus on it and talk about it and hear about it, but also keep it loose and easy. And I just wanted to know if you had some personal experience with that. I know I do. And then how you would handle that situation. Blummer, you've hit 17 home runs in 19 games. What are you doing?
Well, I've never had to answer that question, but I would like to imagine it. But what's great about it is there's a certain, I think ball players are different when they have to answer questions like this, because there is a certain humility to the game of baseball where you realize how hard it actually is. And when you do get in one of these good, zones or streaks or whatever you're on where you're seeing the ball and the game is slowed down and you start to crush and you start to feel it, you're like, I'm just going to ride this wave as long as I possibly can. And like Schwarber said, you get dumb. You don't try and overanalyze. You don't try and figure out what's working well. You just go, thank you for putting me here. And I'm just going to use it as long as I possibly can. So I think that's where that humility comes in when you start to see the interviews and they start to talk about the team. I'm just glad I'm helping the team. The team's going out there and winning. The guys are supporting me behind it. I'm getting some good pitches. I'm getting lucky, whatever it may be. But they really don't want to. There's two reasons they don't want to talk about it. In the sense of, what are you doing differently? How are you doing it? They answer with, hey, I'm just up there, I'm in a good place. I'm trying to help the team. And then the other one is you don't want to screw it up. You don't want to take it for granted and say, oh yeah, you know what? I did this. All of a sudden this guy sucks and he's throwing me meatballs and, pitchers can't get me out right now, because what happens after that? You go 0 for your next 35. And then we're talking about why you're in this tailspin. So I think it's a little bit of respect for the game and the humility, understanding how hard the game is. But it's kind of funny when you do ask a guy about how well he's going, the answers are usually like, yeah, things are good. I'm seeing the ball good. It's simple. It's cliche. But when the guy is, like I said, over 35 and you go, what's going on? Guys could probably break down their swing in 35 minutes talking about that, going, well, I'm not doing this. My foot's not down on time. My head's moving. I can't see the pitch. The release point is baffling me. That guy's deceptive. He's got some of the nastiest stuff I've ever seen. And they go on for a half an hour and you're going, dang, this guy, he's really breaking this down. But if you ask how he's doing so well, he goes, I'm just seeing the ball and hitting the ball.
Yeah. And it is a little, I don't know if it's because we don't believe in jinx or superstition, but you're right. I had a pitching coach say this to me because, you should spend as much time breaking down your faults as you do your successes. And I thought that was always insightful. And I've always been fairly even keel. Mm-hmm. And I know, like you said, you don't want to overthink it, but you should know, and maybe he does know, and I'm sure he does. I mean, some of it's luck, but you got to know
internally. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to know what's going well when it's going well, because that's going to help you pull out of some, we all know this guy throws 9 scoreless innings and he's like runs out to the bar and he's like shots at tequila, like, woo, that was the greatest game I ever threw. And then he gives up 4 runs in 3 innings next time and he beats himself up. He tears his hat up and it's like, look, there's somewhere in between is really how you're going to find success in this game, right? Like, and we've seen guys, I've played with guys like that really enjoyed the success and then just couldn't figure it out when it was going haywire. But I know at this big league level, and I kind of reinforce the point that I know Schwarber's handling it correctly. But, when it does end, when he rolls into July and something switches, hopefully he has the Rolodex and the wherewithal to go, all right, when I was going well, this is, these are the things that are happening. And,
yeah,
hate to keep using Bull Durham as the lexicon for all this baseball stuff, but it's like, look, one duck fart, one seeing, ground ball with eyes, one Texas leaguer, like, that's the stuff you need to help snap you out of it. But it's a streak that's, pretty formidable, and it'll be interesting to see how he finishes up the month here in the last few days. But man, 16 home runs in 18 games is pretty phenomenal.
No, he's on a great ride, and just go ahead and ride that thing out. But it's impressive. Usually guys go out there and, have maybe, multi-hit games or have, a hitting streak of 16, 17 games. But it's one thing to go out there and hit bombs, especially in this day and age where pitchers are so good. And it kind of coincides with them taking away the sticky stuff.
Yeah, well, I said the batting averages they were doing the batting averages prior to the sticky stuff going away was like 239, and now it's like 227. So, I don't know if this right. I mean, maybe it's the sample size may be too small.
It's too small, but pitchers are too good, man.
We've talked about the shift. There's so many other things, but speaking of riding the wave, let's ride the wave into Blum's Blast. And we've talked about it a little bit before, but I think you're going to get deeper into it today. Is Mr. Blum wore the same number, except for if you move this way, when he got called up to the Expos, there you go. He's glorious number 50. But Mr. Blum, you wore number 27, and that was a common theme in your career, and you were going to shed some insight into that.
Yeah, this being podcast number 127 for us, and we are rolling along riding that wave that Tuttle is talking about. I've talked about it a little bit, maybe get a little more into the reason why I wear number 27, but just going into the way back machine, I wore number 11 when I was in Little League and Pony League and through college. And the reason for that was growing up here in Southern California, for whatever reason, I really latched on to third baseman for the California Angels at the time, Doug DeCinces. And I liked the closed off stance that he had. I thought he played a great third base. And I just kind of went, man, number 11 looks good on the back of that guy's jersey. And I go, I want that same number. I want to be able to be the next Doug DeCinces, I guess, so to speak. And just kind of jumped on the 11 train and rode it all the way through college. And of course, in the minor leagues, you don't have an opportunity to pick your number. You're just hoping for a uniform that fits. And being, a little bit larger and taller, I always wore like number 45 in the minor leagues just because of the jersey was the one that would fit me.
Oh,
and I get to the big leagues, and my rookie year, my number, like Tuttle is saying, is number 50. And I get to my second season, and the Expos traded away Shane Andrews, and Shane Andrews had number 11. So for the 2 years of 2000 and 2001, I wore number 11 for the Montreal Expos. I then get traded to the Houston Astros, and they gave me number 6, and that was the number of the guy I got traded for, Chris Truby. And I hated single-digit numbers. I just felt like my back was naked with one number on the back of it. I needed 2 numbers. And being the new guy in spring training, I just kind of bit the bullet and was kind of waiting to see how things worked out because we hadn't broken camp yet. I didn't know who was going to be on the team, who wasn't going to be on the team. But I did know that Brad Ausmus had number 11, and Brad was an all-star everyday catcher. So I knew I couldn't afford to buy that thing off him. And it just so happened that was the spring training that CJ Nitkowski got released by the Houston Astros. And he was wearing number 27 in camp. And I went, okay, that's the number. And so we break camp, and I go into Dennis Laborio, the equipment manager, and I said, I want number 27. I don't want number 6 anymore. And he went, okay, done deal. We show up opening day, and I have number 27 with the Houston Astros. And from 2002 until the end of my career, I wore number 27. And a lot of the reason for that is, and this, again, being fitting that it's 127 is our podcast number, I was married on January 27th. So 1/27 of 01, I was married. So the 27 was the day I got married. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm going, 27. Who wears 27 that's a pretty good ball player at the time? And it was Vlad Guerrero. And I'm a huge Vlad Guerrero fan. And here's how my brain worked. I went, well, he wears number 27. If I wear 27, will I be as good as Vladimir Guerrero? And it didn't work out, but it really worked out in the sense that it became a number that kind of identified itself with me. And, it represented a good day in my life. And it also represented one of my favorite players when I was out there playing in Vlad Guerrero. So that was the reason that I got to wear 27. And it was kind of cool. I played for 6 different teams, and every team I played for, they opened up the opportunity for me to wear number 27. So when I got traded to Houston, obviously that's where it started. But when I got traded to Tampa Bay, they gave me number 27. I get released and I signed with the Padres. I show up in spring training and they gave me number 27. I got traded to the Chicago White Sox in the middle of a season. They gave me number 27. I signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks. They gave me number 27. So I thought it was really, really kind of cool. And I really respected the fact that they gave me the opportunity to continue to wear that number. But that's maybe a little more than you cared to know, but that is everything you need to know about the number 27 in my career.
No, I think it's fantastic. And I think, it speaks to being a veteran. That helps to get your number. But I also think that maybe nobody likes the number 27 except for you. And you would just cruise in and get on there.
I don't want this junk number. Give it to that guy.
Yeah, I don't want this number. Or guys were intimidated, which you weren't. Like, hey, I don't wear 27. They're going to think I'm going to play like Vlad Guerrero, and that bar is really set high. I don't know if I can do it. You actually aspired to do it, so. But that's cool. I appreciate you providing the insight. Like as a pitcher, like you said, through the minor leagues, we didn't have a choice. It was like, all right, a tall, skinny guy. Like I wore this and that. And, we keep talking about these guys we cross paths with. But 1994, I went to AA with the Cincinnati Reds, Chattanooga. And the number 9 pick in the draft that year was CJ Nitkowski for the Cincinnati Reds. And CJ came right to Chattanooga after the draft. And I don't know if he wore number 27. I don't know if that was important to him in AA, but just another commonality there. CJ had just started his career, and when he ended his career with Houston, there you go. You were there to snatch up the number. But we have CJ Nitkowski to thank. And of course, another common thread in our little friendship and career is these guys that we cross paths with.
Well, hold on. That's just kind of interesting. We should actually have maybe our producer, Mark, come up with some names in baseball past and try and figure out how we are both connected, because we kind of came up in that same era. I mean, I had no idea you were a teammate with CJ Nitkowski until you tell these stories, but it would be kind of funny just to play that, 6 Degrees of David Tuttle and see if it kind of reaches back to some of the guys that we both played with. There would probably be, I would say probably at least, if we were able to remember some of the names, at least 100 guys that we were either
I'm sure
played against or shared locker rooms with, man. It would be crazy.
Well, I'm thinking go back to Cal even, right? So Cal has like Mike Harrison was a 5th round pick the year I was drafted by the Reds, and I was a 6th round pick. And then, so you just start there, right? You just start working your way there. And those are guys we played with. So anyway, I think that'd be a fun game. It's the Kevin Bacon game, right? 6 Degrees of the Bleacher Blums podcast. That's for future fodder. We can work on that. But that's all I got, Blummer. I mean, that's Santa Cruz Vacation podcast. I think we did fairly well, my man.
We did. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for everybody for tuning in to this episode of Bleacher Blums. We obviously implore you to go to BlueWirePods.com and check out some of the other podcasts on the Blue Wire network that we are fortunate enough to be a part of. Everybody that is a fan of Bleacher Blums has gone to BleacherBlums.com and checked out our website. Send us questions, send us mailbag stuff, and make sure that you follow us on Twitter at Real David Tuttle and at Blummer27, because some of these questions that we do poll, like we did last episode when our producer read off some of those questions, come via Twitter. So make sure you look for at Bleacher Blums on both Instagram and on Twitter to keep the updates coming. Please go out there and ask your friends and family and anybody you know to subscribe to Bleacher Blums. Make sure you rate, review. That helps us, build that brand a little bit more and reach a couple more listeners out there, and really encourages us and gives us the opportunity to give you a better podcast. But as we do at the end of every podcast, we always appreciate and acknowledge the military that are serving currently and have served before. Obviously, the veterans doing a great job. We appreciate all of you for the standing in the harm's way and protecting our borders and making sure that we're safe here at home and allowing us the freedom to speak our minds here on the Bleacher Blums podcast. And of course, all of the first responders out there protecting us and running to our aid when needed. And of course, all the frontline and essential workers during this pandemic time as we get back to normal. But Tuttle, I think that's going to wrap it up. I'm going to let you take us home.
All right. Hey, no other time to be more thankful than while I'm on vacation, right? You think about freedom and freedom from work and freedom from like daily activities, but man, just the freedom to be sitting here with my feet up, enjoying the beautiful waves of the Pacific Ocean. Again, we're super grateful and thankful. And folks, I know I'm on vacation. Blummer just got back, but it doesn't matter what you're doing. We encourage you to get after it and believe it.